to introduce themselves or reintroduce themselves and tell the folks your role, involvement in the film.
Thank you. I'm Christine, and I'm the writer of the adaptation, the director, co-editor, and a little bit of producing and rendering generally.
Multi-happening.
Hi, I'm Mickey Sumner. I played Robin.
I'm John Hussein, the cinematographer.
I'm Frank Giltman, the composer.
A really special group here. You gave a very stirring intro that felt like there was a lot of personal resonance to this particular story. Can you talk about what drew you to wanting to adapt this book and the process of sort of shaping it into what you wanted it to be?
Okay. I just wanted to thank everyone for staying and for watching the film in the first place. Thank you. It's because when you choose to tell tough stories, you don't quite know where everything's like. There's a lot of fluff around, if it's going to land, and if the conversation will evolve and the audience will find the people that want to see the film and talk about it and share, all the stuff that comes from that. So I read the novel 3 times and took a long time to decide because I was drawn to the character that Elizabeth Banks plays amazingly. But she's a tough character and I needed to find my own way into the story, and I think the fact I picked up the book in the first instance was because of our own experience of medical misadventure. And I spent a lot of time in ICU with John, who was in a coma on his way out, through medical misadventure, and learned to advocate. But I also, as a filmmaker, I'm an observer, so I did a lot of looking and sitting with other people who were experiencing the trauma of being in a waiting room while their loved ones were in a coma, and wondering what the outcomes of those stories were, and watching the doctors come and go, and sitting outside the waiting room where it was like 4 a.m. or whatever, but you're not allowed in to the locked area and to sit by the bed until it's like 6 a.m. and just that time waiting and wondering, and I thought about it a lot. And so for me, the adaptation, I mean, I talked for a while, but really just to say the adaptation for me.
The ghosts of the theater really resonated with you, what you just said, clearly.
I think for me, there was a jump-off point. There's clues in the book, and for me, I wanted to steer the story to be about the transformation of the surgeon, where she was so inside her space that she existed in that she was not really connecting with the outcome, possibly, of the work and the people whose lives she was affecting. And so it's a story that looks at it from both sides, but for me, the family are the beating heart of the film, and so that you can see the 2 scenes are kind of a mirror, but it's, in the last scene, is how she sits with their grief and how she allows them the space to ask what they want, and how she talks about the same information but in a non-informational way with compassion and so on. So I probably said too much already, but
No, I feel like that all clicks with what everybody's just seen. Yes. My question for the group, when you were approached with this film, can we talk about sort of what our vision was, our references, and how we sort of worked together to articulate what the film is, to get this very specific, that is intentional but subtle. It's very like painting like the fine details onto something. So if we could talk about like our process and like what we were trying to articulate, if that makes sense. or if it's too big of a question. It might be.
Yeah, well, we could kick off by saying, I mean, it's very real, it's kind of observational, it's performances first, but with a solid underpinning of story and theme. Independent films don't have a lot of room for play, so we had to lock down the rehearsal. Elizabeth really did do the surgery. We filmed that like pretty much from start to finish, and she knew how to do all the sewing, and she rehearsed that really hard, as did Mickey, in terms of knowing the tools and the instruments and the ballet of the operating room. Yeah, how was it for you, Mickey?
Yeah, we worked with a surgeon and nurses, and we learned the entire operation from beginning to end, and learned all the, what all the instruments are, how you hold them, how you talk to each other. I mean, I have to say, I kind of loved being in the OR. It was really a thrill, from action to cut. You did a 15-minute surgery, and you have the adrenaline, and you feel like you're doing, it's a performance. I think that's why they call it a theatre. But it was really powerful, that adrenaline. And obviously, we don't have a real body and a real person, but we treated her like she was. And no, it was fascinating. I was really grateful for that training. If anyone needs an operation.
If there's not a real doctor in the room, we can have somebody make it work.
No, the plumbing in our prop worked. I mean, the vena cava bled, and it got stitched up, and if you noticed, it actually was pumping blood, and and then when we worked through a take with the body, then we had a supply of new bodies that would come in and get plugged in. And
Not an endless supply.
not an endless
How
supply.
many bodies?
Well, yeah, there was different elements to it. So
Copy.
there
We
was
had
like,
4.
I think we had like 4, like,
I think we had 4 like bellies, so we could, so Elizabeth could scalpelize the belly at the appropriate moment. She says, "Okay, I'm opening." It's such a brutal moment, and we had our surgeon for the time it took us to shoot. Avanish was there the whole time, just making sure that it was accurate from his point of view, and he was just an amazing, generous guide. Just phenomenal, huh? And then we had a middle section, and Acacia, who played the young woman who was undergoing the surgery, we had to sort of bring her in and out. So you can see sometimes the camera tilts down from the action onto her and she's there, but other times we had to take her away because the prosthetic was actually really heavy and quite claustrophobic. So we had to sort of wear her in and out and keep doing, we had to chop and change around a bit.
Really fascinating, just like anatomy of the scene of like, because I'm sure we've seen surgery scenes in films so many times, but it's so like, if you just like break it down, like there's so much happening very quickly, and then you also have to sort of make it understandable to people who are not surgeons, like what's going on. How long did the surgery scene take to shoot?
We had 3 days. And it wasn't very long. I felt like we could have shot more, but what we shot was certainly sufficient to tell the story. I mean, I could just keep on shooting. There were so many details, but I mean, essentially it was, we got what we needed. The prosthetic, well, sometimes it worked, didn't it? Sometimes it didn't. So there was, with anything like that, with an art department situation, you're like, you've got everything's going, the performances are going amazingly, and then the prop doesn't work. So
It doesn't pump out, it just kind of flows out. Yeah.
Or bits of it broke or whatever.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
but
like-
the laparoscopic part of the surgery, to see the camera being passed into and then seeing the screens with the view from the laparoscopic camera, that was all shot for real. And there's no post-production tricks. It genuinely was shot as it happened.
Yes.
So the view inside the body is the view inside the body as seen on the other screens.
Yeah, that was quite a big thing to choreograph. And we were told, sorry?
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, that's, I don't know. There's
I will-
lots to talk about.
I have a question in the back.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm enjoying it, thank you.
Thank you.
Where did you get the term medical misadventure?
I think it's a generic term that people use for when things go wrong, but it's certainly not an adventure, right?
No, I mean, I've never heard of it.
Oh,
I'm an attorney, so we hear more like medical malpractice.
Ah.
But I've never, although I don't think this,
It might just be like a cultural like language thing.
could be.
Could be.
Yeah, did I call it that? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I had never heard it before, but it really could just be like a regional. Just
I think John and I, between ourselves, have talked about our experience as medical misadventure, so maybe it came from that.
right here in the middle.
Hi, fantastic film, fantastic acting.
Thank you.
Could you please elaborate on the final scene where she abandons her car and walks down the road?
Well, I think her getting to that place, I mean, you can see that with the water on the windshield, before she gets there, the water on the windshield, as you say here, right? Not windscreen.
Now we're getting into
Oh.
it.
That it's kind of slightly, kind of about an emotional space that she's in and where you don't know where she's going to. Like she's just been talking about Richard, where's she going? And so it's kind of metaphorical, and I felt the same at the end, like with the place that she got to and how she was in the conversation with the family at the end. They're surrounded by glass. It's like the front of a ship that's been crashing through heavy waters, and there's this kind of wind outside, and you feel like they're exposed, which they are. And when she walks away, for me, it's like in a simple sense, it's like she's processing. So, I mean, I know she could have gone and sat in the car, she might have gone down the road to have an ice cream, or stand at the edge of the village and just look out at the sea and let the wind blow in her face. It's just, I wanted to be with her to feel some kind of release, which I know she would feel having walked out of that situation. And I mean, I guess in terms of we see her, we don't know what her future situation is, but I think it's open to be interpreted how you like, but I do think that she is a sense of real relief about having come to the place she's at now. And I didn't want it to be like she gets in the car, she drives off. I wanted it to be more with her and allow her that, for me, to process what had gone on, rather than just get in the car and drive home. So,
We're kind of out of time, but I want to ask the group. We're not here to like have hot takes after movies. We're here to like let them sit with us and think about them. What do you want the people who have just seen this film to consider, to think about, to question after seeing this film?
that's a great question. Well, I think that there's enough nuance in the film that it raises a lot of questions, and I don't think that there's any right or wrong kind of responses to that, and that we'll all have a different personal response. I didn't want it to be like 100% like clear. I mean, one of the sort of unclearest things is what happened, Elizabeth brings that up when Richard says, but it was the trocar then when she tells him, that he lost the sepsis this morning, and then she defends her position. So you can see all the way through what Elizabeth's line is. but there's also doubt brought into that all as well. So I think even if you just look at that one question, like what actually happened? Why did the young woman die? So I just think that it's open to, I mean, I can have my own opinion about it, and depending on how you come at it, whether you come at it through your own experience or as a medical professional, there's going to be different interpretations. I know what I think, but I don't know if it's, yeah. So I think that it's not just that, there's all kinds of ethical questions, there's consent, there's, you know, the sexism in the hierarchies, there's all kinds of stuff there. And just the grief of the family, and I don't know, I can just go on forever, I guess.
It's as if like the questions are different, they have a different meaning, a different tone, a different feeling in different situations coming from different people, and we have to consider that it may not be super cut and dry.
Yeah,
And even in a very clinical sort of like, this is the way to do this sort of setting.
Yeah, it's about how we are and who we are, and I think, and how we are with each other, you know, in relation to the person next to us and how we speak with them, and the kind of hidden ramifications or kind of vibrations, if you like, of that. It's like how you say things sometimes. I mean, she says, give it some more welly, and we don't realize in that moment, she's, you know, I mean, how's that going to come back to haunt her? It's sometimes it's just the simple things.
Anybody else? What do you think?
I mean, I watched it for the first time on the big screen yesterday, and just as a, you know, a fan of Christine Jeff, I was really taken by, you know, the line she says in the vigil, that it's the responsibility we have for each other and accountability to each other, and that was so powerful to me, and I think I'm thinking about that a lot right now. So.
We can do one more, yes.
I just want to say, I thank you for telling a story of telling the truth and not hiding, and how if you have a good intention, it's okay to tell the truth and not to cover up mistakes. It's just so often everybody tries to hide mistakes, but I thought you did a great job of showing there are times when we are doing our very best and things happen, and we can take responsibility in those cases.
Yeah.
And it's not to see a whole story written about it as opposed to like an ethical question was really beautiful. Thank you for doing that.
100%. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you.
I think that's a beautiful way to end this, I think. Give them all a big round of applause. Please do not forget to scan the QR code out in the lobby to vote for the Audience Award. That's very important. Enjoy the rest of your festival.